On the screen, for those who are interested, yes, welcome to the Moisky News for September the 6th, 2021, are the current UK infection rate numbers for coronavirus. At the moment, we are going through another wave, I guess you could call it, but since this country has essentially unlocked, this doesn't really reflect when it comes to the death toll, which is this. Let's try and ignore the total at the bottom as best we can, because of course anything over 0 is unacceptable. The numbers are incredibly low. Many can attribute this to the vaccine rollout, if you like. Many can attribute this to the fact that there are many rules still in place. But then there is something. There is an industry. There are areas of society that aren't fully open, aren't fully functioning, and when they do fully function, they're going to have to adhere to certain rules that might cause issues. The more notable of which was announced just before Parliament went into a summer recess, which was the dumbest thing they could do. They don't deserve a holiday at this present moment in time, and that would be the concept of a vaccine passport. Originally, the Conservatives were fundamentally against it. Now it's just the backbenchers. But as Parliament is very much in favour of controlling the sheeple, it is undoubtedly going to get through Parliament very quickly. Other countries in Europe have already started introducing this, the more notable of which is actually a part of the United Kingdom, Scotland. And to be honest, they were always going to get it through because the SNP, along with a deal with the Greens, hold a massive majority. Any excuse to keep the sheeple in check, which causes a lot of issues and leads to a lot of protests, which, I'll be honest, have been happening quite a lot in the United Kingdom, in London more notably, which has led to a lot of arrests. Whether that be because of the concept of an argument for and against mandatory vaccines, or because of the lockdowns, or because of the vaccine passport. Earlier last week, it was announced by the vaccine secretary, Nadim Zahawi, that it was in fact the right time to introduce the certificates for all over 18s that have been offered 2 jabs by the end of September. The scheme requires people to show COVID vaccination proof as a means of entering places like nightclubs or indoor venues where large numbers gather, so large numbers can attend, for example, concerts. I already see one gaping, glaring, obvious problem with this, and I'll get to it when I read the quote from Nadim Zahawi. The best way we can keep those industries open, in my view, in our view, is to work with the industry. One thing that we have learnt is that in large gatherings of people, especially indoors, the virus tends to spread and spike. His best example of demonstrating the benefits of all of this is by pointing towards Premier League football clubs that have asked fans to show proof they've been vaccinated, which allows stadiums in turn to reopen to capacity crowds last month. Doesn't mean full, but you know what? We'll let that slide for a moment. They're also not indoor venues, but alright. He also said, when the evidence that you are presented is so clear-cut and that we want to make sure the industry doesn't have to go through an open-shut sort of strategy, then the right thing to do is to introduce that by the end of September, when all over 18-year-olds have had their 2 jabs. The issue here is, and it actually goes back to the infection rate. It's already halfway towards what it was around Christmas. And I'd like to point out, around that time, the entire country was locked down. So do tell me what difference this will make. I'm very much interested. I'm not going to criticize the science. I don't want to get yeeted off YouTube. I just want to point and laugh and say, when we were locked down, that much damage was done. And this idea of a COVID passport is dangerous. On Friday, Trups and I discussed this on the weekly political recap stream we did on this channel, a stream which is also on Spotify, linked to both as a pinned comment down below along with all the sources for this video. With the recent warning on my main channel, I'm not risking it. It'll be a pinned comment only. But we discussed the idea of a COVID passport, and the obvious problem is, everyone keeps saying, politicians mostly and a lot of those media outlets that just agree keep saying that this does not create a 2-tier system, but it does. And it will continue to do so because you're trying to shame people into getting something they don't want, and if they don't get it, They can't be as equal in society as everyone else, which is a very dangerous territory to tread. Very dangerous. Some have obviously pointed out the comparison with the Holocaust and the Jews and their identification papers. I understand the comparison. I don't care for false equivalences. I thought I'd mention it though because a lot of people have said it and have been pilloried for it, the more notable of which was Dankula, I believe. There is another debate happening at the moment with regards to getting this number down, and that is whether or not 12 to 15-year-olds should be, with parental consent, be given the vaccine as well. A lot of the science indicates that they're more, let's say, resistant to it, so they should not be subjected to it, with others indicating that the children should be allowed to consent without the parents say so. Fundamentally, I disagree with that for obvious reasons. They are children. The adult makes the decision for them. There's also an additional issue that was raised by former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, that many countries like those within Africa, the continent, are unable to get vaccinated, which could in turn affect the rest of the world, because not only are they suffering, but versions would mutate there and then go elsewhere. So one has to help as many countries as they can. I'm not sure how one can, but that is up to the world leaders to deal with. When this was announced, the idea of a COVID vaccine passport, no vaccine passports anywhere, was trending. Many people have been pointing out the protests that have been happening in the tens of thousands. The tens of thousands. Others within the trend that I've linked down below did point out and say, well, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't go into this shop. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't go into that place. At some point, Trumps might get proven right when there are going to be two water fountains 2 meters apart, one for the vaccinated and one for the unvaccinated. The thing there is, that was used for white people and not white people. I will say, for the sake of it, I consider all opinions on this to be valid, and it is well worth exploring whether or not there is validity to some of the claims. I don't care for those who just use it as an excuse to attack, but they will regardless because they're pathetic. I will stand by my view that if you don't want to be vaccinated, you are not any less of a person, and you should not be treated as such or have your rights deprived or denied because of your desire not to be vaccinated. And when it comes to venues, it's a tricky area because they want to be open, so they'll just say, okay, we'll agree with you because we want to make money. Their opinion in this is utterly irrelevant. You are hamstringing them and you know it. With this subject, I do want to know what you all think. Please do let me know in the comments down below, and if you did like the video, smash the like and share it about. We have our own personal Twitter for this channel, also please consider following us there. Thank you all very much for listening and have yourselves a lovely day.